I want you to imagine a very mundane, sort of everyday scenario. You are a student, or maybe you are a parent trying to help your teenager figure out their future, or perhaps you are an academic professional doing some industry research.
Okay.
You sit down, open your laptop, or pull out your phone, and you decide to look up the World University Rankings 2025.
Yes, specifically on the Times Higher Education website.
Exactly. It is a completely standard, incredibly common internet search. You find the link and you click it, the page starts to load. But before you see a single ranking, before you can even see which university took the top spot this year, the screen dims.
We all know what's coming next.
Right. A seemingly simple, standardized box pops up right in the center of your screen asking for your consent. We have all seen it a million times. We usually just swat it away, clicking accept all, just so we can get to the information we actually want.
It's essentially the digital equivalent of a toll booth that you don't actually have to pay money to get through.
Yeah.
So you just wave and keep driving. It is designed by its very nature to be a minor, frictionless annoyance that you bypass as quickly as humanly possible.
Right. And usually that's exactly what we do. But for this deep dive, we are not going to swat it away. We're going to freeze time right at the exact moment.
Which is a genuinely eye-opening exercise.
It really is. We are taking the actual factual text of this single cookie consent declaration from that specific website, and we are putting it under a microscope. And when you actually stop and read the technical and legal realities outlined in this one specific pop-up, it is a bit unsettling.
It's a bit.
Okay, it's very unsettling to realize the sheer scale of what is operating behind the scenes. We aren't just looking at a few tracking pixels here to see if you clicked a link. This specific document explicitly lists 1,011 different advertising partners.
1,011.
1,011 distinct corporate entities, and they are all requesting access to your device, your connection, and your behavior just so you can look at a public list of colleges.
When you really dig into this documentation, you realize it is far more than just a legal compliance checklist for privacy laws.
What is it then?
It operates as a highly detailed mechanical blueprint of the entire modern digital economy. It spells out, in black and white, the underlying infrastructure that funds the free internet. It shows us the exact plumbing of a massive, mostly invisible data exchange.
So our goal today is to dissect this dense web of technical jargon provided in the source material. We want to understand exactly who is watching you, what specific pieces of data they are extracting from your browser,
How long they are legally permitted to retain it.
and what clicking that green accept all button actually triggers regarding your digital footprint. Because taking a look at a college ranking list alongside over 1,000 silent partners is anything but a simple transaction.
Not at all. And to truly grasp the scale of it, we should start by looking at the basic anatomy of this consent banner.
The actual numbers.
All right, specifically the numbers and the categories it lays out. The documentation breaks down these trackers into distinct classifications, and the sheer volume assigned to each category tells a very revealing story about what the actual priorities are when a modern web page loads.
Looking at the breakdown here in the source, the baseline count categorizes the trackers into 5 buckets.
Let's see them.
First, we have 48 necessary cookies.
48.
Then we have 10 preferences cookies. After that, there are 42 statistics cookies.
Heading higher.
Then we see a massive jump up to 105 marketing cookies. And finally, there is a very curious bucket of 54 unclassified cookies.
That last one is fascinating.
We will definitely get to that. But I want to start with that first group because 48 feels like a remarkably high number of cookies just to make a standard web page load. I mean, what does necessary actually mean in this context?
The documentation defines necessary cookies as those that help make a website usable by enabling basic functions.
Like what?
This includes things like page navigation and access to secure areas of the site. It actually includes a disclaimer stating that the website cannot function properly without these specific cookies.
So theoretically, if you were to block these 48 specific trackers, the site would just break.
It would break or at least become entirely unusable. But when you examine the specific examples provided in the breakdown, you start to see what functioning properly actually entails for a modern publisher.
Okay, give me an example.
For instance, there's a cookie called cf.turnstile.u from Cloudflare, and 2 cookies called rc:::Kapor and rc:::C from Google.
I've heard of Cloudflare. Are those security mechanisms?
Precisely. The documentation notes these are used to distinguish between humans and bots. It's beneficial for the website to make valid reports on the use of their site, but more importantly, it prevents malicious traffic.
Like a cyber attack.
Exactly. A botnet could try to scrape the entire university ranking database or launch a distributed denial of service attack to take the site down entirely. So a significant portion of these so-called necessary cookies are just there to constantly verify that you are a real flesh and blood person browsing the internet.
Rather than an automated script.
Right.
Okay, there are also several cookies listed under the provider, the World University Rankings itself. I'm seeing one called Keyclo_3p_cookie, all caps.
Yes, that specific one is necessary for the login function on the website.
So if I make an account.
Exactly. If you are a prospective student who created an account to save your favorite universities, that cookie is what keeps you logged in as you click from page to page. Without it, you would have to re-enter your password every single time you loaded a new ranking metric.
That would be incredibly annoying.
It would ruin the user experience. There's also one called CRF token, which helps prevent cross-site request forgery attacks.
Okay, pause. For those of us who aren't cybersecurity experts, what is a cross-site request forgery attack?
In simple terms, it's an exploit where a malicious site tricks your browser into taking an unwanted action on a different site where you are currently authenticated.
So if I have two tabs open.
Yes. Say you are logged into your bank in one tab. A malicious link in another tab might try to forge a request to transfer money using your bank's active session.
Yikes, okay.
That Hassoff token cookie is a unique, secret, and unpredictable value generated by the server. It proves that the request was intentionally made by you on that specific site and not forged by a third party.
That makes total sense.
Another one listed is did_compat, which ensures visitor browsing security. So these are genuinely functional pieces of code. They keep your session secure and maintain the state of your interaction with the server.
I can absolutely understand the need for security tokens, bot checkers, and login persistence. You need the foundation before you can build the house.
Absolutely.
But this brings me to a part of the breakdown that I find genuinely baffling. Let's look at that unclassified category.
The 54 cookies.
Yes, 54 cookies sitting in this bucket. The documentation states, and I am quoting this directly, unclassified cookies are cookies that we are in the process of classifying, together with the providers of individual cookies.
It creates quite a paradox when you think about the nature of consent.
How so?
Well, you are being presented with a legal banner, right, asking you to agree to a contract regarding your personal data in your device.
Yeah.
But the publisher of the website is stating within that very same contract that there are 54 distinct trackers that they themselves do not currently understand.
That's wild.
They're asking you to consent to the execution of code that they admit they are still in the process of classifying.
It's a fascinating legal gray area. They are effectively saying, please give us permission to put these 54 things on your computer. What do? We have no idea. We're currently waiting for an email back from the developers.
Pretty much.
And it is not just obscure fly-by-night companies sitting in this unclassified list. The breakdown includes an unclassified cookie from Amazon called Page Session Ed.
Amazon is everywhere.
There is one from Flickr called CCC. There is one from a company called Smile Wanted named SEPUW_user_params_infos. Tableau has two.
The data visualization software.
Right. The World University Rankings themselves have 14 unclassified cookies listed, mostly related to a system called Auth. And this is the kicker. There is even an unclassified cookie from TikTok called TT followed by a long string of characters.
On an academic ranking site.
Exactly. How does a publisher justify asking a user to accept an unclassified TikTok tracker on a page about university rankings?
It highlights a massive disconnect in the current consent framework of the internet. The sheer speed, volume, and complexity of the vendor ecosystem completely outpace a website publisher's ability to manually audit what is actually running on their own web pages.
So the publisher is just overwhelmed.
Essentially, yes. Publishers integrate third-party tools like a TikTok widget for sharing, an Amazon affiliate link, or a Tableau data visualization dashboard, and those tools bring their own secondary and tertiary trackers with them.
A Trojan horse of cookies.
Right. The publisher is legally obligated to list them on the consent banner, but they are practically unable to define their exact purpose before presenting that banner to you. The code executes faster than the classification process.
Unbelievable. Okay, before we get to the really heavy tracking elements, let's just briefly look at the other two smaller categories. We have 10 preferences cookies and 42 statistics cookies.
Preference cookies are straightforward. They enable a website to remember information that changes the way the website behaves or looks.
Like dark mode, things like that.
Exactly. The specific examples given in the text are your preferred language or the region you are in. For instance, there is a cookie listed called GeoCountry, which determines your preferred language and country setting so the site can automatically display localized content.
Okay, very benign. And the 42 statistics cookies, are they just counting page views?
They are counting views, but they are also doing behavioral flow analysis. The documentation notes these help website owners understand how visitors interact with the site by collecting and reporting information anonymously.
Google Analytics comes to mind.
Google Analytics is a prime example here. They utilize cookies like _GA and _GID. These register a unique ID to generate statistical data on your journey through the site, which page you landed on, how long you stayed, what you clicked, and where you exited.
Are there others besides Google?
Yeah, there's also a Vimeo cookie called Viewed that collects data on your visits, monitoring which specific pages or videos you have interacted with.
Okay, so if we step back and look at the whole picture of this initial breakdown, you need 48 cookies just to make the site work securely and keep the bots out. You have 10 to remember your language. You have 42 to see how you navigate the site.
Yeah.
And you have 54 that literally no one can identify.
Right.
But then we have 105 categorized strictly as marketing cookies. And the stated intention of these is to display ads that are relevant and engaging for the individual user and thereby more valuable for publishers and third-party advertisers.
That's the core of it.
The sheer weight of the marketing trackers compared to the necessary ones really tells the story here.
It really does.
Yeah.
It shows that the primary function of the code executing on your device isn't just delivering the academic content you requested.
No.
A massive portion of the computational effort is dedicated to extracting value from your visit to fund the delivery of that content.
And exploring how they extract that value is really the core of this deep dive, because when people hear the word tracker, they usually just think of a standard HTTP cookie, a little digital crumb left in your browser history that just says, this person visited this site.
Which is an incredibly outdated way to think about it.
Right. The source material reveals that the mechanics of observation are much, much deeper than a simple text file. It's not just a crumb, it's an active fingerprint.
The documentation outlines several specific features and special features that you are being asked to consent to. One of the most striking is the special feature labeled, and I'll quote it, actively scan device characteristics for identification.
I read that phrase in the source and it actually made me pause. What does actively scanning device characteristics actually look like in practice?
The documentation provides a very clear definition. It states that, with your acceptance, certain characteristics specific to your device might be requested and used to distinguish it from other devices.
Like my IP address.
More than that, the examples it gives are quite staggering. It looks at the install fonts, the plugins, and the exact resolution of your screen.
Wait, my fonts. Why on earth would an advertising partner care if I have Helvetica or Comic Sans installed on my laptop?
They don't care about your aesthetic choices, they care about the mathematical uniqueness of those choices.
What do you mean?
This is a concept in information theory called entropy. Out of the billions of devices connected to the internet, how many have your exact combination of screen resolution, your specific operating system version, the specific ad blockers or extensions you have installed on your browser, and the specific library of custom fonts you might have downloaded for a design project?
Oh, I see.
When you combine all those tiny, seemingly irrelevant details, the math narrows down until it points to exactly one computer, yours.
So they aren't looking for my name. They are looking for the exact dimensions and contents of my digital shadow.
Precisely. It creates a unique device fingerprint. The reason this is so critical for advertisers is that traditional HTTP cookies can be deleted.
Right, everyone says clear your cookies.
Exactly. If you go into your browser settings right now and clear your cookies, you might think you are starting with a blank slate.
A fresh start.
But this fingerprinting technique can still identify your specific machine the very next time you visit a site on that network.
Because my hardware didn't change.
Right. Your hardware and software configuration hasn't changed, so the fingerprint remains identical. You are instantly re-identified, and your old profile is seamlessly reattached to your new session.
That is incredibly sophisticated just to show someone an ad on a university ranking site. And the extraction doesn't stop at the hardware level either.
No, it gets much more physical.
The documentation draws a very sharp distinction regarding location tracking. There's general geographic location, and then there is what it explicitly calls precise geolocation data.
It's a vital distinction to understand. In the initial overview, the documentation mentions collecting information about your geographical location, which can be accurate to within several meters. But when you look down into the special features section, it defines the parameter for using precise geolocation data.
And what is the official definition of precise in this context?
It explicitly defines precise geolocation as being accurate to within a radius of less than 500 meters.
Less than 500 meters. That is roughly 3 city blocks.
It's very localized.
So to paint a real-world picture here, you are sitting in a local coffee shop, or maybe you're at a specific terminal in an airport browsing a list of universities. By clicking Accept All, you are giving permission to this ecosystem of ad partners to log your physical location on Earth down to that specific neighborhood or city block.
Yes.
It begs the question, why does an academic ranking site need to know what neighborhood I'm currently sitting in?
Well, the site itself likely doesn't need it. But the 1011 advertising partners absolutely want it to enrich your behavioral profile.
How does my neighborhood help them?
If they know you regularly visit a coffee shop in the financial district versus a coffee shop near a university campus, that location data implies different demographic and economic realities about you.
I see. It's all about building context.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which brings us to another fascinating set of features defined in the text. Link different devices and match and combine data from other data sources. This is how the industry builds a comprehensive matrix of your life, rather than just a siloed view of your web browser.
Let's break those down. Let's start with link different devices. I have my smartphone, I have my work laptop, and I have a tablet I use at home. Does this feature mean they actively know that all 3 of those distinct pieces of hardware belong to me?
According to the source material, yes. The documentation states that your device might be considered as likely linked to other devices that belong to you or your household.
How do they know they are mine?
It even details the methodology. It gives 2 specific examples. For instance, because you are logged in to the same service on both your phone and your computer, or, and this is the big one, because you may use the same internet connection on both devices.
The same internet connection, meaning my home Wi-Fi router.
Exactly. When your phone and your laptop connect to the internet through your home router, they share the same external IP address.
Right.
This consent document allows the tracking infrastructure to observe that IP address, recognize the 2 distinct device fingerprints operating behind it, and assume they belong to the same household or individual. They then stitch those profiles together.
So if I use my phone late at night to search for something deeply personal, or maybe I'm looking up symptoms for a medical issue,
The ad network can take that behavioral data and use it to target an ad on your work laptop the next morning.
simply because both devices share a Wi-Fi router.
Yes.
That really collapses the boundary between our devices. You think of your phone as private and your work computer as separate, but to them it's all one person.
It's all one data stream.
And what about the second feature? Match and combine data from other data sources.
This is perhaps the most significant bridge between the digital world and the physical world.
How so?
The documentation explicitly states that information about your activity on this service may be matched and combined with information originating from various other sources.
Like other websites.
It mentions standard cross-site tracking, like matching your activity on a completely separate online service. But the examples it provides go much further. It explicitly lists combining your web data with your use of a loyalty card in-store or your answers to a survey.
A loyalty card in-store. Are we talking about scanning a barcode at the grocery store checkout to get 50 cents off a box of cereal?
That is exactly what it means.
You're kidding?
Not at all. Think about it. If you signed up for that loyalty card using an email address or a phone number, and you have ever used that same email address to log into a website, make an online purchase, or fill out a digital survey, a data broker can link those 2 identities.
Oh.
This consent document gives the ad tech ecosystem permission to combine the offline reality, the fact that you buy a specific brand of organic cereal and premium diapers in the physical world, with the online reality that you are currently researching Ivy League universities.
When you lay it out like that, it really frames the whole situation differently. We've established that the moment you hit accept all, you are unleashing hundreds of trackers that can scan your screen resolution, pinpoint your location to within 3 city blocks, link your private phone searches to your work laptop, and connect your current web browsing to your physical grocery store receipts.
It is a massive intake of information.
The obvious next question is why? What is the ultimate end goal of extracting and synthesizing all of this disparate data?
The documentation actually answers that question directly. It doesn't just list the technical collection methods. It extensively details the purposes for the collection.
Okay, what are the purposes?
Reading through those purposes makes it abundantly clear that this isn't just about showing you a random banner ad for car insurance. It is about deep, predictive, algorithmic profiling.
I am incredibly grateful that the source material actually provides concrete narrative examples for these purposes, because reading raw legal definitions can get very abstract very quickly. Let's look at the purpose labeled Create Profiles for Personalized Advertising.
Let's do it.
The documentation states that information about your activity, like the content you look at, is combined with previous activity to build a profile about your possible interests and personal aspects. Let's walk through the exact examples they provide to illustrate how this math works in reality.
The first example provided is the bike accessory scenario.
Okay.
The document states, if you read several articles about the best bike accessories to buy, this information could be used to create a profile about your interest in bike accessory.
That is the fundamental baseline of behavioral tracking. You look at bikes, you get tagged with a bike interest profile. That part makes sense to me. It's direct cause and effect.
But the example doesn't stop there. It outlines how the algorithm extrapolates.
Okay, what does it do next?
It says, if you also look at a configurator for a vehicle on a luxury car manufacturer website, this information could be combined with your interest in bikes to refine your profile and make an assumption that you are interested in luxury cycling gear.
That is algorithmic assumption in action, and it is fascinating.
Very much so.
You never actually searched for or looked at luxury cycling gear. You looked at a standard article about bike pedals, and maybe a week later, on a completely different website, you played around with a luxury car configurator.
Right.
The algorithmic system mathematically combined those two completely unconnected data points to invent a new, highly specific demographic category just for you: the wealthy cyclist. It assumed your economic status from the car and your hobby from the article and merged them.
Precisely. It is generating new insights about you that you never explicitly provided.
And it treats those assumptions as facts.
Yes. And the second example given under this purpose is even more revealing, particularly regarding the offline data broker industry we mentioned earlier.
The supermarket stuff.
Exactly. It describes an apparel company that wants to promote a new line of high-end baby clothes. The documentation explains that this company gets in touch with an agency that has a network of clients with high-income customers, such as high-end supermarkets.
There is that supermarket connection again. It's wild how valuable grocery data is to the internet.
It's foundational because grocery data represents confirmed recurring financial behavior. You can't fake what you buy to eat every week.
Right.
The scenario continues, explaining that the apparel company asks the agency to create profiles of young parents or couples who can be assumed to be wealthy and to have a new child.
Assumed to be wealthy.
Yes, so that these can later be used to present advertising within partner apps based on those profiles.
Notice the repeated use of the word assumed.
It's the key to the whole operation.
They are utilizing your high-end supermarket shopping data to assume your wealth bracket and combining it with some other data point, perhaps a recent search for a larger vehicle or a visit to a pediatrician's website to assume you have a new child.
Exactly.
This is purely to target you with baby clothes ads inside completely unrelated mobile apps like a weather app or a puzzle game.
And it isn't strictly limited to advertising either.
It's not.
No. The documentation also outlines purposes for personalizing non-advertising content. It's shaping the actual internet you experience.
Yes, under the specific purpose, create profiles to personalize content. The document provides a great illustration regarding DIY projects. It explains that if you read several articles on how to build a treehouse on a social media platform, this information is added to your profile, permanently marking an interest in outdoors and do-it-yourself guides.
And the practical result of that, according to the text, is that you are then presented with more blog posts, videos, and articles on treehouses and wood cabins in the future.
Your initial curiosity dictates the reality of the content you're allowed to see going forward. The algorithm decides you are a DIY person, and it starts building a filter bubble around you, slowly filtering out content that doesn't fit that defined profile.
The text gives another broader example of this cross-platform content shaping. It states, you have viewed 3 videos on space exploration across different TV apps.
Okay, so watching TV in my living room.
Right. An unrelated news platform with which you have had no contact builds a profile based on that viewing behavior, marking space exploration as a topic of possible interest for other videos.
I find that example particularly striking. an unrelated news platform with which you have had no contact. Because of this hidden ecosystem of 10-11 partners constantly sharing these profile signals in the background, a website you have literally never visited before already knows you like space exploration videos before you even click their homepage.
They know this simply because you watched a documentary on your smart TV 3 days ago.
It really reframes the concept of web browsing. You aren't navigating the internet as an anonymous stranger discovering new pages.
Not at all.
You are navigating as a highly defined, constantly updated data packet. You arrive at a new website prepackaged with your assumed wealth, your recent hobbies, your hardware configuration, and your exact location. All of this is handed over to the publisher the millisecond the page begins to load.
And the surveillance doesn't end once the ad is served or the content is displayed. The documentation also details purposes for measure advertising performance and measure content performance.
They need to see if their math actually worked.
Exactly. They need to know if their algorithmic assumptions actually resulted in a behavioral change.
The documentation provides the classic e-commerce example for measuring ad performance. It explains that if you click on a Black Friday discount ad by an online shop while browsing a publisher's website and you proceed to buy a product, your click will be linked to this purchase.
They are actively closing the loop. They track the initial ad impression, the physical click, the time spent on the store page, and the final financial transaction. This is how they mathematically prove the return on investment to the advertiser.
And for measuring content performance, the tracking gets down to the actual seconds of your attention. The example provided says, you were presented a video on fashion trends, but you and several other users stopped watching after 30 seconds.
It explicitly notes that this information is then used to evaluate the right length of future videos. They are literally timing your attention span.
They are logging your abandonment rates, your scroll depth, your hover times. Every microscopic interaction, every pause, every scroll is a data point fed back into the statistical models to refine the profile further.
Which brings us to a very critical juncture in this whole analysis. We have established what data they are extracting, the technical means by which they extract it, and the predictive algorithms they feed it into. But the fundamental premise of this entire legal document is that you, the user, have a choice in the matter. We are looking at a consent selection screen after all.
Right. The banner literally greets you with the phrase, you have a choice in who uses your data and for what purposes. So, practically speaking, what does this all mean for our ability to actually say no? If I am disturbed by this profiling and I go into the settings and manually uncheck all those boxes for marketing and statistics, I'm opting out of the system, right? Does hitting reject all actually stop this massive machine?
This is where we encounter what is perhaps the most significant legal loophole in the entire framework, and it fundamentally undermines the layman's concept of digital consent.
A loophole.
It is the concept of legitimate interest.
I noticed this phrase repeated over and over again in the vendor list, often in very fine print. Let's really dig into this. What does the documentation actually say about legitimate interest?
If you look at the About Ad Settings section, the document explicitly states, some partners do not ask for your consent to process your data. Instead, they rely on their legitimate business interest.
Let me just repeat that. Some partners do not ask for your consent. And this statement is located on a screen that is literally titled Consent Selection.
It is a profound contradiction. The documentation continues. View our list of partners to see the purposes they believe they have legitimate interest for and how you can object to it.
How you can object to it.
Yes, this represents a massive shift in the burden of privacy. Under a strict consent model, the default is supposed to be no until you actively opt in.
Right, I have to say yes.
But with legitimate interest, the advertising partner is legally claiming they have a valid overriding business reason to process your personal data without asking you first. In this scenario, the burden shifts entirely onto you, the consumer, to manually object to their ongoing processing.
So even if I hit the global reject all button on the main screen,
you're not necessarily rejecting all 1011 partners.
That is wild.
If a vendor is claiming legitimate interest for a specific data processing purpose, rejecting general consent doesn't stop them. The documentation outlines that you must object to legitimate interest processing per purpose, or in many cases, per vendor.
That is an almost impossible burden to place on a casual reader. The text implies that I have to go into the partner list and manually object. Have you scrolled through the partner list in this document?
Oh, I have.
It is a towering wall of text featuring hundreds and hundreds of corporate entities. Let's look at who is actually utilizing this legitimate interest loophole in the real world.
It is an extensive list. For example, let's look at the entry for a vendor called Branch Metrics, Inc.
Okay.
They ask for your consent for things like creating personalized advertising profiles, which you can decline. But they explicitly claim legitimate interest for a purpose called develop and improve services.
So they're legally arguing that they do not need my consent to extract my data if they use it to develop and improve their own ad tech services?
Exactly.
Who else is doing this?
A company called OnePlus XHAG claims legitimate interest to measure advertising and content performance. Sixth Sense Insights, Inc., claims legitimate interest to use limited data to select advertising and understand audiences through statistics.
Okay, so analytics companies.
The data broker giant Axiom relies on legitimate interest for selecting ads, measuring performance, and understanding audiences.
Yeah.
Even Amazon ads relies on legitimate interest to measure advertising performance.
Even Amazon is using the loophole. That really shows how standardized this practice is. And you mentioned Axiom. For listeners who might not know, Axiom isn't a household name like Amazon, but they are one of the largest data brokers on the planet.
Massive.
They aggregate data from public records, surveys, and commercial transactions to build incredibly detailed dossiers on hundreds of millions of people. And this document states that a giant like Axiom believes they have a legitimate interest to process your data to understand audiences, bypassing your initial consent click.
The list of companies utilizing this defense is staggering. Adform AS, Archie, Inc., Acuity Ads, Inc. We can spend the rest of the hour just reading the names. Hundreds of these vendors have carved out specific processing purposes where they bypass the need for your direct consent by claiming their business needs override your privacy defaults.
This completely shifts the balance of power in the interaction. The initial banner presents this clean, simple, empowering toggle switch yes or no.
It looks very user-friendly.
But the underlying reality detailed deep in this text is a labyrinth of legal justifications where no doesn't actually mean no. It means no, unless we decide our internal business operations require your data anyway, in which case you have to find our specific corporate name in an alphabetized list of 10, 11 companies and click a highly specific object button just for us.
What is particularly notable is how the interface legally sanitizes this practice. It lists legitimate interest right alongside consent for nearly every major processing purpose.
How does it do that?
For instance, the purpose use limited data to select advertising has a small tag next to it that explicitly says bracket X bracket legitimate interest.
Just a little checkbox.
Yes. The entire system appears designed to provide the user with the illusion of granular localized control while structurally ensuring the data flow remains largely uninterrupted for the most critical profiling, measurement, and audience building tasks.
Okay, this brings us to what is honestly the most overwhelming part of the document, but it's crucial we dive into it. The vendor list itself.
The 10-11 partners.
Yes, we have thrown around the number 1011 a lot today. But when you actually scroll through the partners section of this text, the sheer variety and obscurity of these entities is staggering. It's an entire invisible economy operating in milliseconds.
We all know the major tech giants, and they're certainly heavily represented in this document. The text details dozens of cookies from Google, Meta, TikTok, LinkedIn, and Amazon. But the vast, vast majority of the 1011 partners listed are companies the average person has absolutely never heard of.
Total ghosts.
They are the invisible infrastructure of the web. The independent data brokers, the real-time bidding platforms, the programmatic advertising houses, and the analytics aggregators that operate completely behind the scenes.
I am looking at some of these names in the vendor breakdown right now. We have 014OWN, 152 Media LLC, 2K Direct, Inc., DBAI Promote, 33A across Sixth Sense Insights. Those are just the companies that start with numbers.
It goes all the way through the alphabet.
Moving into the A's, we have A Corp, SPZOO, AceX, SPZA.O, Adform AS, Intelligent Inc., Archon Programmatic House, FZC, Audience AG. It just never stops. It's an endless scroll of corporate entities. What do all these programmatic houses actually do in the time it takes a page to load?
They constitute the real-time bidding infrastructure. When you click the link to load that university ranking page, an invisible option takes place in the roughly 200 milliseconds it takes for the browser to render the site.
200 milliseconds.
Fast. These programmatic companies are instantly analyzing the profile data we discussed earlier, your fingerprint, your location, your assumed wealth, your recent interests. They then bid in real time against each other on behalf of advertisers for the right to show you a specific ad.
In real time.
Yes, they sync their cookies, they share your identifiers across networks, and they pass your location data back and forth to mathematically determine exactly how much your eyeballs are worth at that exact fraction of a second.
It's high-frequency trading, but the commodity is human attention.
That's exactly what it is.
And what I find deeply unsettling isn't just who these obscure companies are, but how long they are legally authorizing themselves to stay on my device. The documentation provides a column for the maximum storage duration for the cookies these vendors place. Let's break down a timeline of these trackers because the numbers are unbelievable.
The storage durations listed vary wildly depending on the vendor and the purpose. Some are what the documentation calls session cookies. These are benign and temporary. They disappear the moment you close your browser window.
Okay, those are fine.
Some last for one day, like the Cloudflare bot checking cookie __C-_BM. But when you move past the functional necessary cookies and examine the marketing and statistics vendors, the durations absolutely explode.
Let's pull some specific examples directly from the source material. Let's start with Flickr. I know Flickr is a legacy photo sharing site, but they have trackers listed here in the marketing section.
Yes, the text lists a Flickr cookie called ExitB. The stated purpose is control cookie used in connection to the website's content delivery network. The maximum storage duration listed for this single cookie, 10 years.
10 years. A cookie placed on my computer today will technically be allowed to sit in my browser architecture and execute its code until a decade from now.
Correct.
And it's not just Flickr acting as an outlier. Look at the vendor list for the consent expiry times across the programmatic platforms.
The documentation explicitly lists the consent expiry for several major vendors. For the programmatic platform, Adform.AS, the consent expiry is explicitly set to 10 years. For Adventure Media SRL, the consent expiry is also 10 years, which they list exactly as 3,650 days.
3,650 days.
For 80man-Fastos Networks, SA, another 10 years.
But I am scrolling further down and it gets even longer. I'm looking at an entry for a company called AirTory Inc.
Yes, AirTory Inc. The documentation lists their maximum data retention period is 4,320 days. That equates to nearly 12 years.
Let me find another one in the A's Audience AG.
Audience AG also lists a maximum data retention period of 400 and 320 days, nearly 12 years.
What about automatic ads?
Also 400 and 320 days, nearly 12 years.
Let's try to connect this abstract number to a real-world human timeline. Let's say you are looking up this World University Rankings page because you have a 14-year-old child who is just starting high school. And you want to start getting an idea of what the top-tier schools are. You click the link, you get the pop-up, you click Accept All to get it out of the way. In that millisecond, a tracker from AirTory Inc. or Audience AG or Automatic Ads is placed on your family computer.
And according to the terms legally established in this document, that specific tracker has a data retention period of nearly 12 years.
That means that cookie will still be legally active on that machine when your 14-year-old child graduates high school. It will still be there collecting and transmitting data when they graduate college. It will still be tracking that device when they are graduating with a master's degree and entering the professional workforce.
It is a profound amount of time in the tech world.
That one single click to briefly view a college ranking list initiated a 12-year continuous surveillance contract with a programmatic advertising company you have never heard of.
And during those 12 years, as the documentation details, they are authorized to collect a vast array of telemetry. They are collecting your IP address, your unique device identifiers, any user-provided data they can match, and your precise or non-precise location data. They utilize this to continuously develop their services and select content.
And they just sit there collecting.
The persistence of this data collection infrastructure is staggering. It is literally designed to outlast the physical hardware of the device itself in many cases.
We also need to talk about how the major tech giants are operating within this vendor list, because they aren't just placing cookies when you visit their own proprietary websites like youtube.com or linkedin.com. The documentation clearly shows how they embed themselves as third-party trackers across independent sites.
Let's look at YouTube as a prime example. The documentation lists 22 different unique cookies provided by YouTube, executing just on this single university ranking page.
22 cookies. Why are they there?
Because the site publisher likely embedded a YouTube video somewhere on the page, perhaps a promotional video for one of the top universities.
And what are those 22 cookies actually doing if I'm not even on YouTube's website? I'm just looking at the university page.
The documentation is very explicit regarding their function. Several of them, including underscore secure rollout underscore token, underscore secure YNI, last underscore result underscore entry underscore key, and next it share the exact same stated purpose, used to track users' interaction with embedded content.
So even if you never navigate to youtube.com, YouTube is actively tracking how you interact with their video player while you are on the university site. They know if you played it, paused it, or muted it.
Exactly. But it goes further than just the video interaction. There's also a cookie called YSC, which the documentation states registers a unique ID to keep statistics of what videos from YouTube the user has seen.
As a statistics.
And a similar cookie called yet.innertube : which serves the same statistical purpose but utilizes a persistent maximum storage duration within your HTML local storage.
Wait, what is HTML local storage? Is that different from a normal cookie?
Yes, significantly. A traditional HTTP cookie is a small text file sent with web requests. HTML local storage is a web application software method that allows websites to store data directly within the browser on your device, much like a tiny local database.
Okay.
It can hold much more data than a standard cookie, and crucially, it doesn't expire automatically. It stays there until the web app deletes it, or you manually clear your browser's local storage cache, which most people never do.
Great.
So through this local storage, YouTube is building a persistent, ongoing profile of your viewing habits, even when you are browsing entirely independent websites.
TikTok is deploying the exact same strategy. The vendor list includes 7 unique cookies from TikTok, including underscore TDP and TTT underscore sessioned, with the stated purpose, used by the social networking service, TikTok, for tracking the use of embedded services. They carry a 1-year storage duration. LinkedIn is present as well, deploying cookies like bcookie and livesvirk, again, explicitly for tracking the use of embedded services.
It creates an inescapable, interconnected web. You might believe you are avoiding social media tracking by reading a dry, academic website, but the social media networks are seamlessly embedded into the very infrastructure of the academic website itself.
So they see everything.
Through these embedded cross-site trackers, they are able to monitor your navigation across the broader internet, continuously feeding that behavioral data back into the massive predictive profiles we discussed earlier.
And the specific categories of data they are authorizing themselves to collect are so incredibly vast. As we scroll through this vendor list, we keep seeing the same massive blocks of data types listed under these obscure programmatic companies.
Let's look at a few more examples.
Yeah, let's look at a company called Ad Experience SaaS. They have a 90-day retention period. What specific data points are they collecting during those 90 days?
The documentation lists their collection parameters as IP addresses, device characteristics, device identifiers, probabilistic identifiers, non-precise location data, precise location data, and privacy choices.
Precise location data again. This completely unknown company, Ad Experience SaaS, is authorizing itself to collect my physical location to within 3 city blocks. What about AdSquare GmbH? They have a 400-day retention period listed.
AdSquare GmbH has an even broader collection mandate. They are collecting IP addresses, device characteristics, device identifiers, probabilistic identifiers, authentication-derived identifiers, browsing and interaction data, user-provided data, non-precise location data, precise location data, and users' profiles. They are extracting essentially every single category of data defined in the entire consent framework.
You just read 2 terms there that I want to clarify. Probabilistic identifiers and authentication-derived identifiers. The technical depth of this surveillance is daunting. What is a probabilistic identifier? Are they just mathematically guessing who I am?
That is essentially what it is. An authentication-derived identifier is deterministic. It means you actually logged in with an email or password, so they know exactly who you are with 100% certainty.
Right, that makes sense.
A probabilistic identifier is used when you aren't logged in. The algorithms analyze your browsing habits, the time of day you are active, your IP address hopping between home and work, and your device fingerprint.
All the stuff we talked about earlier.
Exactly. By running that massive data set through statistical models, they can probabilistically determine that the anonymous user looking at this university site is very likely the exact same user who looked at a luxury car site yesterday with a 95% confidence interval. They don't need your name. They just need the math to be accurate enough to sell the ad targeting.
It's just staggering. The sheer technical scale, the algorithms, the 12-year retention periods, the probabilistic math, and all of this is buried in a wall of legal text that pops up when a parent just wants to see if Oxford beat Cambridge in the rankings this year.
Which brings us to a fundamental realization about the architecture of the modern internet. The digital transaction is never, ever just between you and the content provider.
No, it is a crowded room, and I think that is the perfect way to summarize what we have unpacked today as we wrap up this deep dive. Looking at the World University Rankings 2025 on the Times Higher Education website is not a solitary private act between a curious reader and a publisher.
Definitely not.
It is an event that is actively observed, recorded, mathematically categorized, and profiled by over 1,000 distinct corporate entities simultaneously.
It is an ecosystem that utilizes 48 necessary cookies just to keep the server secure and the bots at bay, but then unleashes well over 100 marketing trackers and programmatic bidders to build a highly monetizable profile of your daily life.
They are tracking your physical location down to a 500-meter radius. They are reading the custom fonts installed on your computer to create a unique device fingerprint. They are utilizing probabilistic math to link your private phone searches to your work laptop because you happen to share the same Wi-Fi router.
They are analyzing your grocery store loyalty card purchases to assume your wealth bracket so they can target you with ads for baby clothes inside a weather app.
And they are legally authorizing themselves to save this data within your browser architecture for up to a decade or even nearly 12 years in the case of companies like Automatic Ads and Audience AG.
And perhaps most frustratingly for the end user, the documentation reveals that the very consent you are asked to provide is heavily compromised by the legal loophole of legitimate interest.
The dark pattern.
Right. This framework allows hundreds of data brokers and ad tech platforms to bypass your default refusal, shifting the immense burden of opting out entirely onto your shoulders, requiring you to navigate a labyrinth of 10-11 vendors just to say no.
So the next time you are trying to quickly read an article or look up a dinner recipe or check a university ranking, and you see that simple, standardized little cookie banner pop up with the big, inviting accept all button, I want you to remember this deep dive. You now understand the microscopic, sprawling, hyper-fast universe of data brokering and programmatic bidding that is operating furiously underneath that button. You know exactly what that single click is worth to them and what it costs you in terms of your digital footprint.
And to leave you with one final provocative thought drawn directly from the text of the source material itself. If you look closely at the About Ad Settings section of the document, it outlines the lifespan of your privacy choices.
Okay.
It states, the choices you make regarding the purposes and entities listed are saved in the local storage in cookie body TCF consent string for a maximum of 13 months. After up to 13 months, the CMP will prompt again.
Let me make sure I understand that. The system remembers my privacy choices for only 13 months.
Yes. Your explicit choice to refuse tracking legally expires in 13 months. But as we just detailed at length, the tracking cookies themselves from programmatic companies like Airtory Inc. and Adform are engineered and legally programmed to remain on your device and retain your data for up to 12 years or 4,320 days.
Wow.
If your legal refusal to be tracked expires in just over a single year, but the tracking mechanisms themselves are designed to persist for over a decade, who is this entire consent system truly designed to protect? Is it built to protect your privacy, or is it built to protect the data broker's bottom line? We'll leave you to ponder that.